right. Here we are again. Still alive. We, bit of a late night last night. We went out with all the thermal gear and the safari wagon and went out thinning out the invasive wild hog species yet again. It's funny, I was asking my buddies, and my buddy and his son last night, I said, how many hogs do you think you've killed in your entire lifetime? Just right here on the property. And they're both like, oh man. I think they said just last summer, just one summer, they trapped over 400. They don't even know how many hundreds they shot. And for all of those of you out there who aren't familiar with this, it is a nasty ass virus. For real. No matter how cute you think little piggies are, these are an invasive species. And 6 months, they're sexually mature. And they have, I believe, 3 litters each per year. 8 to 12 piglets or something like that, or who cares how many it is. It's off the frickin' chart. I forget what my buddy said. He did the math on what just 2 pairs do in 2 years alone. And it's literally a jungle out here, jungle and swamps. And they say that in order to keep the existing population just level, you have to kill 75% of the existing herd, whatever you want to call it. The existing animals, you have to kill 75% of them to keep the population just going level, which is impossible. The destruction in the U.S. alone is in the billions of dollars to crops and all the natural wildlife. And it's amazing to see. It's kind of sad in a way too. I mean, these things, they don't graze off the greenery. They don't graze it off. They uproot it and annihilate it and kill it. And they eat every single thing they find. Turkey eggs, quail eggs, duck eggs, deer fawns if we get a hold of them, snakes, everything. Insects, roots, grass, crops. They absolutely annihilate everything and reproduce just as fast as some kind of a virus that we would catch. So there you go. If you're curious about what the hell we're doing, and a lot of people say, "Well, do you take all the meat? What are you gonna do with it?" Of course, the food rules. You're not allowed to butcher them and give them to people who need them. Although we have in the past, lots. But yeah, on the average, you just shoot them, drop them, and keep going. Try to get as many as you can. That's all I could do right now until somebody comes up with some kind of, I don't know, possible scientific, creepy, biological method to kill them off. But then, of course, when somebody tries pulling that stunt, it ends up killing something else off that shouldn't be killed off, right? So that's what we do. We get a chance to do it. We go out and shoot the shit out of them. Yeah. Now that we got that cleared up. That's my buddy's got a classic cuckoo clock in the wall over there. Haven't seen one of those in years. Now, I'm going to get some emails heard from inside here, and happy Easter to everyone. It's Easter Day today. It's Easter. Now listen to this. This is titled, "You Have Given Me Strength." All right. Hi, Steve. My name is Roger. I'm in my mid-40s. I had an incident as a little kid that has never left me. I still look over my shoulder and go slowly, taking everything in around me before I move forward when I'm in the woods or fishing at a lake. I love the forests and wooded areas, especially when there's a mountain stream running through them. I've spent most of my life hunting and fishing. My dad tells me I caught my first bluefish at 6 months old off the coast of Maryland. With a laugh behind it. My mother always told me I came out with a rifle in one hand and a fishing pole in the other. There's literally nothing better than that experience of being at peace with nature. And I'm telling you this so you can understand why what I am about to tell you isn't natural in any way that I can understand. Granted, I was young, under 10, but I can still remember the paralyzing fear. That feeling has never left me. Anyway, I'll get into it. I was living in Maine at the time, around Lisbon Center. We had a post office, a corner store, and there was no gas stations or grocery stores. It was a one-horse town. We lived at the dead end of a road that emptied into the great forests of Maine. And just for some perspective, my backyard started with giant pine trees that, as a child, seemed to reach into the sky. I remember being up in those trees looking down at my brother on the ground. He looked like a little ant from up there. I spent most of my childhood hunting those forests and fishing those streams and rivers. It was about a year before I moved to Michigan that it happened. I was walking with my cousin down a well-made trail, probably 5 or 6 feet wide, about a half mile from my house. Our heads were mostly down and glancing at each other as we quietly talked and walked along. For some reason, we both froze in mid-step and couldn't move. I could barely raise my head to look mostly forward. I heard no sound, but for some reason we both froze. I remember the feeling because it scares the hell out of me, even thinking about it. Something I'll never forget. My body was paralyzed in place except being able to raise my head slightly. I was struck with fear of death in my entire body. I don't know why. My eyes looked forward, and it was like a foot in front of me. If I wasn't paralyzed, I could have punched it. It was that close. It didn't make any sound. It didn't even move. But for some unknown reason, I couldn't move, and the fear I had never felt before or since in me. I saw the 2 human-like arms going down its side. The reddish, long, flowing hair that slightly moved in the almost still wind. That moment has been etched in my mind, and I've never been able to let it go. Then it was as if the paralysis started lifting, and I could feel my head turning to my cousin, and his to me, but it was like watching a blurry, moving picture. The image I saw looking at him was distorted, and I could only imagine mine was to him. It was like our heads were stretched and mouths open too far to be real. We started turning and ran as fast as we could until we got back to the house. I'd never seen his face. It was too close to me, and I couldn't look up. I had never doubted myself as to what I saw. I knew, and I still know, and nothing will ever change that. I tried to tell my story what happened when I was young, but the few that believed me said I probably saw a bear. But it wasn't a bear. I was laughed at and ridiculed as a kid. My cousin said he never remembers being in the woods with me when I told him that he was with me, and he won't admit what happened, but I will. Whatever this creature was, it had the power to emit overwhelming fear to the point of paralysis. It never even did anything that would make you think it was aggressive. It did nothing scary. And to this day, I have never felt anything like it. I've been on the ground 30 yards from a black bear that wasn't sure what it wanted to do. I was scared, but not that kind of fear. I know what I saw and what happened, and nobody will ever tell me any different. I've always had a feeling that if I had been alone that day, I wouldn't be alive. I don't know why I've always felt that way. It was an instinct in my gut. And in hindsight, hearing of all the missing children and clothes found in the wrong places, I know if I were alone that day, my name would be among those. I quit telling my story over 30 years ago. Nobody believed me. But that paralyzed fear and that image of seeing that hairy beast with arms only a few inches from my face has never left me. The stories I hear you talk about with the missing children makes me wonder if that almost happened to me. I hope this helps somebody, or might help to understand what may have happened to their missing child. You've given me the strength to speak out. Thank you, Roger. Good to hear, Roger, and I hope you keep speaking out. And if you let that laughter get to you, I hope you stop. Send him one of these videos, Send him one of these videos. I wonder what's going on. What do you guys think? What do you think's going on when everybody's getting paralyzed in the slow motion and losing at times? Does that mean we are entering where they are, or they are entering where we are? Which one is it? Which one? And I have a feeling I don't think that being is responsible for the missing kids, because I don't think your young cousin would have detoured it from taking your ass. I don't believe myself, but who am I? And regressive Hypnotherapy? That might be something. If you could talk your cousin into it, he just might have seen the whole thing, right? I wonder if he'd be willing to do that. I don't know how tight you guys are, but I'd be asking him. I appreciate you sharing that email. It charged at us roaring. Tell this email. Dear Mr. Isdall, I recently discovered your site on Facebook and began looking at your videos. I'm writing you to tell you how much I appreciate your voice on the subject of Bigfoot/Sasquatch. I had an up-close encounter myself at the age of 7. I estimate that the creature was only about 75 feet directly in front of me. There were 4 of us, my mom, my grandma, my brother, and myself, and it charged us from the wood line and was roaring the whole time. It is the only thing I can say that ever truly terrified me in my life, and I'm 52 now. And this was in, Florida, by the way, in the 70s. I grew up on a farm and lived in an area that was either farmland or woods, and I thought I knew all the animals out there until that day of my encounter. However, I can't really call this creature only an animal because it had human-like facial features and hands and feet, just on a massive scale that would have made Arnold Schwarzenegger look small. It was reddish brown and approximately 8 feet in height and about 600 plus pounds. You know what you've seen can't be explained and yet can't be more real. And I'm a knower, like you. So I'm just here to sincerely thank you for coming to the front, defending those that are mistreated by so many ugly people out there. Fortunately, I am a very strong-willed redhead and speak what I feel to be the real truth, however brutal it may be. That's what you get from me. And I see that character trait in you and appreciate it. Thank you sincerely for your voice and experience. Elizabeth, welcome to the club. Welcome to the family. Appreciate your email. I get it. Cut from the same loaf. The people that laugh, they're missing out on knowledge. And they're missing out on knowledge in a lot of different topics, I'll bet. Next up, haven't hunted the family farm since. Sounds familiar. May have read this one. Hey, Steve. I've been listening to your YouTube channel for months. I finally got the courage to message you about one of many encounters. I'm a young 29-year-old, and I've hunted pretty much everything you can hunt in the state of Pennsylvania. Small game, squirrel, rabbit, pheasant, turkey, goose, duck, large game, deer, bear, and coyote. I'm 5'11", I'm 240 pounds. Pretty much there's nothing that scares me. When I was a child, my dad made up some crazy story about those things called Molly Guardians. He said these things come out at night, and if you didn't come in at dusk, they're known to take children. And as a kid, I just thought it was something to scare us children, and listen when it got dark, to come in and settle down for the night. I'll get back to the Molly Guardians later, but keep that in mind. On a beautiful late October day in 2016, I was hunting for gray squirrels on my family's 270-acre farmland in Pennsylvania. There was not much wind at all that day, and I was successful in my hunt that day with already 4 squirrels. So I sat alongside a hill where a path went alongside it. I sat on a stump with my squirrel carrying a bag alongside it. What? Squirrel carrying bag? Anyway, sorry, that's how it was written. And I was there for a good 40 minutes. I was taking in the beauty of that day when everything slowly went silent as we slip to where they are, or they slip to where we are. What's going on at that moment, right? Then a few moments later, I heard deer running down the hill a good 45 yards away. I got startled, and I had no clue. I watched on that side of the hill. I was very still, and they ran out the area one behind another like a bat out of hell, hauling ass like something scared them. I wasn't sure what it was. And not a moment later, I saw something my eyes weren't prepared to see, and to this day strikes fear and terror within me that I haven't hunted squirrels in years because of it. I saw an 8-foot hairy bipedal being following where the deer went. I sat there, grabbed my gun, and when I moved, the thing looked in my direction. Armed with only my Marlin 22, I sat there feeling dread, feeling hopeless. Had no visible neck, almost, but what I can tell you, it had black, orangish, brownish hair. Seeing his face, dark eyes, see the skin on the face and the mouth area that was dark too. And we sat there, looking at each other for what felt like a lifetime. I was so terrified I pissed my pants. Watching its every move. But to my surprise, this thing did not feel threatened by my presence. As scared as I was, I got up slowly and had my 22 facing drawn downward the ground in a non-violent manner, relaxed as I could be. And it let off this violent roar like a woman screaming. And like that, the thing ran the way the deer ran. And as I watched it run through the woods with no hesitation and movement, it's like watching a marathon runner jumping over obstacles. It was fast and agile. I moved with no problem, through and over and down into a ravine. I quickly got out of the area and forgot my squirrel carrying the bag by the stump. After that incident, I have not hunted over at my... Cuckoo. After that incident, I've not hunted over at my family's farm since. I spent the night at my family's farm, and the next day my squirrel carrying a pack was put on one of the gate posts to one of the pens for the many farm animals. There was no squirrel, but I had my bag back. I got to my dad's, and my dad asked me if I had any luck, and I said yes, I did, but something took my squirrel. Curious as my father was, he kept praying, asking me what happened. So I told him. I think he might have meant prying. He said, "Oh, so you finally saw a Molly Guardian?" I said, "No, Dad, it was a Bigfoot Sasquatch-looking thing." He said, "Yeah, that's a Molly Guardian." I asked him how the hell he ever came to call it something like that. He said, "Your grandfather saw one once, and then I did. And my dad called them that on the account you don't want to be called crazy or some nutcase. We gave it that name because it sounds scary, and the way they roar, the sound is so terrifying, like a woman screaming. So, when we talked about Bigfoot, we were talking about Molly Guardians." I asked my dad if he had ever been hurt. He said no, but he has heard of people's dogs that have cooped up disappearing. I think he meant came up disappearing. Caught one before in the woods with someone's dog, dragging the dog by the back legs. My family has had their fair share of Bigfoot, or what we call them, Molly Guardians. End of email. There you go. And there's the mystery for me. Why didn't they tell you what is out there, with all honesty? I don't frickin' get it. All right, okay, I get the thing when you go to work and you can't tell your boss. I get it. Because of your profession, you can't talk about it publicly. I get it. But you live rurally, and you see one of these beings and you don't tell your children? Like, it just makes me want to yell out, "What the F are you thinking, man? What are you doing? What are you, stupid?" And I'm not trying to be funny. I just don't get it. I really, seriously, it breaks my brain when I think about all the people out there that don't say shit. I just could not imagine. I can't imagine not telling your family what you saw in the back 40, especially your kids. It just doesn't frickin' make sense to me. What a power, what a skill, whatever it is, however they're doing it, however somebody's done it to us, to make our brains block and deny at all costs what just went down right there in the backyard and not talk about it, and it's okay to not tell your kids even. How are so many of us built that way? That's really alarming. But if you look what the majority of the world does daily, I guess it's just us. I guess that's just the way many of us are built. Why is that? Right? Why is that? All right, I'll stop rant-a-rooing. What do we got here? Who's next? He saw 4 of them. Hi, Steve. My friend was missing chickens. Thought maybe it was raccoons. But he was shocked at what he found behind his chicken house. Less than a mile from the Costco store in the Smoky Point near Everett, Washington. It's real, because I've had many encounters with these, and my friend is now freaked out. I was hunting with my walker hounds one night, and my dogs were on a scent, so I sat down on a log to wait and hear which way they were going, and all of a sudden I heard a branch break, and it was my dogs laying behind me shaking. I thought, what the hell? What the hell is this? Is this my dogs would fight a bear? You mean, what the hell, because my dogs would fight a bear? Now you know when it's word for word when I'm trying to correct their typos as we read. We're all at the same coffee table. Nothing's rehearsed here, right? I thought, what the hell? Okay, got that. Then I heard voices saying, I'm 5 miles from the nearest house on a moonlit night at 2 a.m. I had no flashlight and just sitting there. Then I heard voices saying, all right. Next thing, I saw 4 of these. 2 males, 10 to 12 feet tall, 1 female, 8 feet tall, and the child about 5 to 6 feet tall. The young one was walking in front of the 3 that were walking side by side. They got about 30 feet from me. And the tallest one stopped, lifted his head, and took a big sniff of air. And they all stopped and pinned me. I was so scared I was going to die that night. The largest one took 1 step toward me, and the one next to the female grabbed its shoulder and spoke in its ear and said something to it. I think it saw my rifle. They veered off into the brush, and I do believe it was my gun that saved my life. Otherwise, I think I would be dead now because I got the drop on them. I have had several encounters in Washington State, hunting. One in Oregon, bass fishing. A huge rock was thrown at my boat off a cliff right before dark. And one time in Idaho, bass fishing at night, there were 2 of them calling each other. 1 on each side of the lake we were fishing. And last year, my son and I were hunting over in Oroville at my brother's property along the Canadian border. I put apples in the tree about 10 feet high. I set up a trail camera the night before opening day of deer season. The next morning, they were gone. I was looking up the tree, and son says, what's this? A circle 2 feet around, 1 inch wide of deer hair. Freaked us out. No pictures on the camera. And both our cell phones were dead. This is all true. Use my name if you want to. Thanks, Steve. Rick Alexander. I'll read that part. A little garbled up, but we got it. I set up a trail camera night before opening day of deer season. Next morning, they were gone. I looking up the tree, and my son says, what's this? A circle 2 feet around, 1 inch wide, of deer hair. I looked up the tree. Now, I can't even picture what the heck that must have been. A circle of deer hair, 2 feet around and 1 inch wide, up in the tree. That's not even possible, unless it's stuck to something, woven into something, or a deer hide, but not just hair. But anyway, whatever. Besides the point. Appreciate the email, man. I believe you. And welcome to the club. Only 4. Only 4. It's funny, after this, I'm going to grab a rifle and I'm going deep into the timber here. I'm going to go in a solo sneak about and see what's going on in there. And videos. I'll put the GoPro on my chest and we'll see what we see. Haidaguay included. Queen Charlotte Islands. I've had a couple of incidents and 1 sighting. I do not tell people about my experiences anymore because they just do not believe or want to hear about it. I get it. These all happened between the mid-70s and early 80s in Haidaguay. Queen Charlotte Islands back then. I used to love going for walks on the beach with my dog, Shepherd/Collie Cross, and my radio to sit on a log, listen to music, and watch the waves on the beach and just be in my own little world. And this was about the third time my dog and I had gone to the beach, known as Cemetery Beach. And on this day, everything was peaceful, beautiful day. And I was enjoying my relaxing time, and the dog was asleep beside me. And all of a sudden, she bolted awake and started whimpering and whining, looking towards the bush to the left of the way we had to go to get back home. She was acting strange. My gut was telling me she wanted us to get out of here, and now. She'd been on many overnight camping and hunting trips with my dad and brother and never acted like this. She would bark at bears and deer, and I listened to my gut and the dog and headed home. And as we left the beach and entered into the bush on the dirt road, I had a strange, creepy feeling of being watched. We walked back to town at a pretty good pace. I've never been a runner. I'm not 100% sure if it was a Sasquatch that made that dog act like that, but the process of elimination as to what it could have been leads me to believe it very well could have been. And a few months later, there was a big beach party out in the same beach, and I'd forgotten about the previous experience. I went to parties and beach parties just to hang out with friends. If I drank, it was just a pop. I did not like not having my wits about me when I'm not home. Anyway, it was getting late, around 11 p.m. to head back, and as I was trying to catch up to my sister and her friend, I lost sight of them. It was a moonlit night where you could see things pretty good. And I was looking down, watching where I was walking, so not to trip on a log. When I looked up, I turned a little off course to the right from the direction of the road, and clear as day, I saw a very, very tall, hairy being walking upright on two legs. And I'm terrible at judging distance. The best guess would be about 30 feet away. He was walking fast, taking big strides, and arms were swinging back and forth with each stride. I stopped my tracks and did not make a sound. It turned its head and looked straight at me. When it turned its head back forward and was out of sight, I turned tail and ran back to the fire. I'm not sure how fast I was running. Remember, previously I did not run, but when I tripped on something, I remember seeing the sky go by twice. When I got back to the fire, my best friend, who's First Nations and I am white, said, "Holy shit, for a white girl, you sure are white." By the time I calmed down, there was a crowd around me. When I told them what I saw, some believed me and others said it was just a cow. I explained, "Cows now walk on their hind legs like that?" A few years later, a bunch of us were out at Pier Lake, which is in south of Cemetery Beach, about a half an hour drive. We're talking about wanting to go camp there sometime, and one of the guys says, "Watch this," more like listen to this, and he whistled really loud. And we all stood there super quiet listening. Then across the lake, thick bush and brush, we heard what sounded like a very loud whack on a tree ahead and to the right a little. Then a few seconds later, another very loud whack ahead and to the left of us. The guy whistled again, but this time there was no sound back. So much for camping. We all hightailed it out of there. No doubt. I've not told those stories in many years, but I remember it all like it was just yesterday. I do not mind if you want to share the story, but anonymously, please. Now what the hell, like you said, who gives a crap what other people think? Use my name if you want. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. It helps me to realize there are more people that are experiencing the same things with sights and ridicule. Have a great day. No name. There's no name anyway. Have a great day. K. Appreciate your email. I appreciate your email. It's funny how many people they dictate to us facts that they could never, ever be able to back up in a million years. You know, they'll go, well, there's no Bigfoot in the UK. Oh my God. We just ran into the smartest person that ever existed in the UK. Holy shit, where did you finally come from? You know what I mean? I've heard many people as well say, No, I heard there's Bigfoot like in the middle of BC and South Coast, but they're not in Haidaguay. They're kind of funny. It's kind of very comical, actually, right? When any human being dictates something like that, it's like, really, you have to share your studies with us sometime and your method on counting them and locating them to tell us where they are or aren't with confidence, right? All right. I think there's two emails. It's from the same person saved in this entry, this folder. One, two. All right. I think the bottom one came in first. Hey, Steve, I messaged you a few months ago looking for some answers. So now I will share my story. Back in the summer of '91, my buddy and I were making plans for our first bow hunting trip to an area around Bumping Lake on the northeast side of Mount Rainier. We found an elk calving area just loaded with elk and deer and black bear. At that point in my life, I'd been hunting for over 20 years in an area about 15 miles away. And as it turned out, my buddy couldn't go because of his job, so I went alone. I went over on a Thursday night and found a great spur road and made camp. Nothing happened that night. And the next day I looked around and I got wood for my fire. That night I was sitting around my fire and I heard something about 20 yards away on the other side of a creek, pacing back and forth. Then it would stop, and I would hear it behind me. At the time, I thought it was bears. So the next morning, I woke to elk bugling about 100 yards from my camp, and off I went. They were herded up with a very large 5x6. I saw them several times, so I followed them in behind a swamp, and when I started around the swamp, there was those footsteps I had heard the night before. They seemed to parallel me for about 15 minutes. Then I tracked the elk for a while, then I stopped for a bit, and then all of a sudden, I smelled a horrible smell so strong, it gagged me. It smelled like skunk and rotten flesh. This happened every single day and night also. So on the last day of my hunt, I climbed a steep ridge, and I was going to still hunt the whole day. When I reached near the top, I was standing there waiting for light to come, and I'd been there between 5 to 10 minutes when all of a sudden brush and branches started to break. Then the most god-awful screams and roars came from about 40 yards above me. It absolutely scared the living shit out of me. I immediately knocked an arrow and began walking back down the trail. When I got about a quarter mile away, I turned and started to run. When I got another half a mile away, I stopped. And that being was still screaming from the same place. And then I smelled that horrible off to my left. So I believe that Sasquatch was trying to save my life because he was standing near the edge of a 400-foot shale cliff on the same trail screaming right at me. I knew the cliff was there. He didn't know that. So in wrapping this up, they never showed themselves to me and were never aggressive, just curious. There's a lot more to this story, and I'll stop it here. Thanks for all you do. Use my name if you want. Gregory Dietert. Second email. Steve, I'd like to tell you how much help you'd have given. I'm no longer afraid to tell people what happened to me. And for the first time in 29 years, I went solo elk hunting over on the Olympic Peninsula, about 7 miles south of Forks, Washington. My longtime friend, who is much like yourself, a lifelong fishing and hunting guide, with whom I've been fishing with for many years. So my buddy set me up on his property on Bookit River. The first night, nothing happened. I hunted very hard. Opening day, and there was no elk in the area, so I was going to hunt the next morning. If nothing, I was going to go home and give them a few days to get into the rut. That night I was sleeping in my truck and I was awakened at 1 a.m. in the morning with a strange yell right across the river, like it was telling me, I'm here. At first I thought it was a dream. I went back to sleep. The next morning I hunted a little while and went home, and that was Sunday. The next Wednesday, my buddy called me and told me the elk are starting to bugle and to get back over there. So I did the next day. First night, nothing. I hunted the same area all day. There are quite a few elk in the area now. And this is where it gets weird. After hunting all day, I was tired, so I went to sleep early. Then about 11:30 p.m., I was awakened by what I thought was an owl near my truck. It kept me up for about a half an hour. Then I went back to sleep. At about 3 a.m., I was awakened by a tree knock, very close to me. One single tree knock. And again, I thought I was dreaming, so I hunted a couple more days and couldn't find a legal bull. So I went back to give my buddy his key for the property and asked him if he had ever had anything weird happen when he hunted there, and he said no. And I asked him if he believed in Sasquatch. He told me no. Then he said he did find a human-sized footprint about 5 miles in from where I was hunting. Between where I was camped and the ocean, there is about 10 miles of wilderness, so it is very remote. My question to you is, once they know that you know about them, do they play games with you? Also, the more I look into this now, I realize I've been having encounters for over 45 years. And I've had my sixth sense alerted many times. I've been growled at twice and left areas many times because something wasn't right. Another question I have is there a reason this has been happening to me? Thanks a million, Steve. Use my story as a name if you wish. Greg Detert. Greg Detert. Detert. Hope I got your last name right, Greg. Yeah, I think if you've been here long enough now, listening to everybody, you could probably... I think it makes a lot of sense that once they know, you know. I guess they can say it right back at us. Oh, the cat's out of the bag, isn't it? Right? They know, we know, without a doubt. I mean, how many weird experiences do you guys think I've had a year? A couple anyway, right? I must have at least 2, 1 or 2 or 3 a year that I'm absolutely aware of. Who knows what goes on that I'm not aware of? Yeah, they know. They know. Toy with us? I don't know what. I don't know. I don't know why they even bother with us. To be honest, I don't have a clue why they bother with us so much. I don't get it. I don't get it. Throw us an update sometime. If you got more you want to share, if you learned anything else, let me know about it, man. Let me know. Now, I just remembered, as I was reading, I remember this. Hold on. Give me a second. All right. I keep forgetting to add this. So our friend Shelby Joe, First Nations guy from Mount Currie, him and Kelly Dan, the man, were on video with me at their house, at Kelly's house. And he messaged me a recording from a girlfriend of his, friend in the community, who, when he said, she went up for a smoke in the deck. Excuse me. And heard this sound. It flashed up her camera and she recorded it. And it sounds like there was some other people outside in the community and it sounded like they yelled back at it. And I have a funny feeling that it's not a first time that sound's been heard around there, without a doubt. So I'll share right now. And then after that, I think I should be back tomorrow. I should be back tomorrow. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Get your truth shared, all right? I think it's going to be a pretty busy week. Now that we're going to road trip, 3 of us, to Texas for 10 hours. And then I don't know what's going on. There's just too much going on. And then I think I'm coming back. All I know is I have to be home by May 1st. But anyway, have a listen to this. I'll see you tomorrow.